years through a program called Sponsors for Educational Opportunity. That really set me on the path to actually have as a community, and I'm happy to share more about it, Claudia, but I feel like the overarching message is we are over-mentored and we are under-invested in, and this is our moment to truly talk about the power of the Latino community, because let's be crystal clear, we are invisible as a community. We are not acknowledged by brands. They love us to buy their stuff, but when we need them, they really do not show up in force, and no one is going to care about Latinos other than Latinos. That's why we need Latinos Unidos.
Yeah, that's right. We need to unify and, don't go after the wallet, go after the investment of the community if you really want long-term loyalty, which is something that we do anyway. Okay, so Yvette Peña from AARP. If I may add one thing, if you want to add, how are you feeling in these times of, of social unrest, and what do you feel about the Latino community on top of your introduction, review for panelists overall? Yvette.
Hola Claudia y saludos a todos. I am Yvette Peña. I am a first-generation Afro-Latina. I am the daughter of immigrants from the Dominican Republic whose ancestors traveled from Africa through Spain, Portugal, Cuba, and Puerto Rico, and they settled in Santo Domingo. I was born and raised in New York City. Spanish was my first language, and before I went to pre-K, I learned English through shows like Sesame Street and Zoom. My career journey has taken me through many wonderful places, to Chicago, Colorado, DC. And growing up in the melting pot of New York City, I didn't really have true clarity on who I was. Was I Black or was I Latina? For the Black community, I wasn't truly Black because I spoke Spanish. And for the Latinos, depending on which group of Latinos I was with, I was una negrita. Right? So I started to mature and grow through my journey and my career, and I started to embrace, my Latinidad, my Afro-Latinidad. And at times I felt like I didn't even need to state it, because when you see me, this is who I am, an experienced person who is up to the same challenges as my peers. And today I'm here as a proud Afro-Latina, and I work at AARP. I am the Vice President of Multicultural Leadership, and I lead the Latino audience strategy, enterprise-wide. And I call the work I do, the social mission work I do, heart work. Why? Because we empower people to choose as they live, helping them live with more salud, dinero, y amor. These times are very uncertain. And what I feel and what I've heard, the thread here is the word unity. I mean, with all that is happening, with Black Lives Matter, social injustice, all of the disparities, all of the issues that have always been here are now heightened and are to the forefront. But we as Latinos, Latinx, whatever we want to call each other, it's about unifying. We have power, and there's power in numbers. I just look at the screen and I have goosebumps because there's so much power just by us being here together, talking about the issues that impact nuestra comunidad Latina.
Yeah, and Yvette, I want to thank you. I learned from you about the relevance for the Latino community about identity and pride. I want to move to Fernando Machado from Burger King, and because we're Latinos and yet we have 1 hour to go through all the questions that we have, we're going to start going short in the introduction. So keep it short and succinct. Let's go into Fernando Machado, please.
Hey guys, a pleasure to be here today. I'm Brazilian. I was born in Brazil, raised in Brazil. My dad was born in the Amazon. My mom was born in Bahia. And I lived everywhere in Brazil. My dad was in the army, so we moved around quite a bit. I always wanted to do global marketing. I worked for Unilever before, Burger King and Restaurant Brands International. I lived everywhere. I lived in Mexico, so my Spanish is chilango. I lived in New York. I lived in London. And now I am in the north of Latin America here in Miami, which is where our headquarters are. I manage brands, I manage Burger King, Popeyes, and Tim Hortons globally. In the home market, Burger King and Popeyes, they over-index Hispanic in terms of the consumer base. We over-index massively Hispanic in our workforce, both in the restaurant and in the corporate office. My CEO, my boss, El Jefe, is a Cuban descendant, so we are in Miami, so it tends to over-index big time here. Look, I mean, I'm excited about our community, and I think that my bias might be slightly different because of my location and because of the fact that our brands they over-index and with the community, and we invest specifically creating assets, understanding around the community. But yeah, like, I think that we can be doing more, especially when it comes to doing more together.
Yeah, and Fernando, you're a Hispanic star, a pride, like in the advertising community. Every time in the Cannes Advertisement Festival, you bring the Latinos' name very high. So very great to have you here. Ivan Heredia from Disney, and just one thing about like the Latino, Hispanic, and so on. Brazilians tend to say that they are not Hispanic, Latino because of the language and so on. It's an interesting conversation, but the data shows that 98% of the people don't care about the distinction. We just care about being seen, heard, and valued more than what we're called. So as long as we act as a community, I think that you can call us whatever you want. Okay, so Ivan Heredia.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, saludos. Thank you, Claudia. I love that you called me Ivan. Sounds like I'm home. Ivan, for those who choose to call me Ivan, I respond to that as well. Second generation Dominican, born and raised in New York, to Dominican parents who recently celebrated 51 years together, retired building superintendent, and a homemaker who really embodied hard work and really personify what it is to be a hardworking Hispanic in this country. They migrated in the 60s. I'm one of four. Like I said, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, around West Indian people, around Jews, a very multicultural environment. And we were the household that really cranked up the South Side merengue to make sure that our voices were heard. So there was no really escaping my Latinidad growing up since day one. I have the privilege of leading brand and revenue for Radio Disney, one of the many great brands at the Walt Disney Company.
Awesome. And with the power of the brands that are in this panel alone, we can turn around the Latino community in 1 year. Okay, moving on. Rosie Ajam from Still Other.
Hola, hello everybody. I'm Rosie Ajam. I was born and raised in Maracaibo, Venezuela, and spent a lot of years then in Caracas, and from there moved to different countries, to Colombia, spent 9 years then in Panama until moved with my family to New York about 4 years ago. I am the VP and General Manager for the Aramis and Designer Fragrances, together with the Lab Series business for the Estée Lauder companies. And I'm very proud. I'm very excited to be here, to be part of this movement. Thank you, Claudia, for the amazing energy that you injected at the beginning of this session. I think that is part of who we are, and that is part of the passion that we can have and the commitment that we can show to make things happen. So I really feel very honored to be with this panel here today, and I'm very excited for what we can do together, united, and inviting more people to join these efforts for the Latin community. So thank you.
Absolutely, great. Andrea Perez from George Brand.
Hola, Claudia. Thank you so much, everyone, for your energy. What a pleasure to be with everybody and see old friends like Ivan and Steven and Fabi that I go way back with, and meeting new friends like Yvette and Rosie, etc. My name is Andrea Perez for those Americans out here. I am Mexican. I grew up in Mexico. I lived in Mexico my whole life until my 20s, when I came to the United States first for grad school, and then I just stayed. I love it here. Obviously, I became an American about 2 years ago, and I say that I'm learning to be Mexican American, just like I had to learn that being a Latino, which was I was obviously the majority in Mexico, and coming to the U.S., it was learning to be a minority and what that meant. I think now is learning both my rights and my responsibilities now as a Mexican American and Latin American living in the United States. So that's incredible. I have the honor to work for the Jordan brand. That's a brand that represents Black excellence, but definitely it represents excellence for everyone. And that has allowed me to get to know other parts of the American culture brand. So excited again to be here and to chat with all of you, and thanks to everyone that has been already asking questions and giving us good energy.
And you mentioned one very important point, Andrea, which is friends. You know that every revolution through history has started with 50 people that share the same mission and just go for it. So if we can have 50 friends that are going to go for the same vision, and our vision is actually to be seen, heard, and valued, and to have Hispanics be seen as stars as contributors to this country, I think that we can do it. And what you also mentioned is that you're 100% Latinos, were 100% Hispanics, or Latinx, whatever you want to call it, and 100% American. So you have 200% of us in every one of us. So let's go to Susan Beth from Google.
Yeah, hi everyone. Bon dia. It's an honor to be here with everyone. So I identify as Latin American, Brazilian, and I'm also a gay woman. I've been living in the U.S. since 2008 when I moved to New York with my partner, and both my parents were born in Brazil, my dad in Rio and my mom in Manaus. But my dad's family was English, and so this is why I have a name like Susan Betts, which sounds very English, and why I grew up bilingual as well. And it's interesting, Claudia. I'm going to counter you on something you said, where you said that most Brazilians don't identify as Latino or Latina, and a good friend of mine at Google, where I work, Charisse Torres, asked me, can I ask you a personal question? And I said, of course. Like, do you identify as Latina? And I said, absolutely. First of all, because it's true. Brazil is in Latin America. And second of all, because I think it's educational. There is no one flavor of being Latino or Latina. We are beautifully intersectional. I can be white, blue-eyed, speak fluent English, have a name like Susan Betts, and still be 100% Brazilian and Latina. And by the way, my only nationality is Brazilian. I only have one passport, so I hold it very proudly. And the way I'm feeling, there's a word that I love in Portuguese, and I think it extends to our entire community, which is ginga. Ginga, comes from rhythm, comes from music, comes from soccer, or as we would say, futebol. And it's this sort of beautiful rhythm and creativity that we have, and as a community makes us very gracious and versatile, which is why I'm feeling optimistic because we are creative and versatile, and we'll get through this together and we'll be stronger.
Right. And there's a trend to Latinidad, Susan. I mean, like as you probably have the data, as we know, in the past, we were told to hide our Latinidad, to hide our language, and to melt in, and to be more American and Latinos at home. There's a trend actually to Latinidad, and people are coming out more, and people are feeling more proud and proud. So I would like to move it to Jesus Gonzalez from Sonos, if you don't mind. And because we need to get into the last three speakers that I have, please try to let's be short and sweet in the interest. Mute. Open your mic.
Buenos días, buenas tardes. My name is Jesus Manuel Gonzalez. I am second generation Mexican American, or Claudia said, 100% Mexicano, 100% Americano. I am the proud product of the Bracero experience. My grandfather came to this country as part of the Bracero program, a work exchange program with Mexico in the 50s and 60s, to the Valle Coachella to work in the harvest of grapes. The Coachella Valley was where Cesar Chavez, United Farm Workers, Dolores Huerta had some of their first victories against the farm companies, the grape harvesting companies, and really built the foundation of who I am as a person. My mom is watching, so again, she was 14 when she came. She was not afforded the luxury of education or the privilege, right? She worked in the harvest of grapes for 26 years, like many of our communities do now, as essential workers. But they invested in my education, making me the first on all sides of my family to go to college and get my BA in political science at UC Riverside. That's really where my Latinidad really evolved, right? Jesse Gonzalez became Jesus Gonzalez. I joined a Chicano organization, Unión Estudiantil de la Raza. It wasn't on a Greek system, it was on the Nahuatl system, right? Clase Mazatzi. And that's where I really learned about the history and colonization of the Americas, and now artists and nonprofits genuinely and fully leverage the convergence of music, cultura, commerce, and philanthropy. I was most recently Senior Vice President of Brands and Partnerships at Universal Music Group, handling brands for all their Latin labels in the U.S. That meant Universal Latino, home of the golden boy J Balvin, was taking Latin culture music global to iconic label from Visa Visa, home of Miguel del Norte, Juan Gabriel. So really got to do some amazing stuff. I was also VP of Music Partnerships at Front, which is part of the Octagon, Rogers and Cowan, now PMK family that is part of the larger IPG family. And there I handle music partnerships across our global portfolio. So happy to be here, and I look at this panel as aspirational and proof that when you take the Gonzalez, the Perez, the Romo off our last name, and you look at our accomplishment, you see excellence. When you add the Perez, the Gonzalez, the Romo, it's exponentially amplified because of the stereotypes, the hardships, and against the grain that we have to go through to be sitting here. So kudos to Adweek, to Nadine for making this happen.
And I want to be your best friend. That's it. You're amazing. Great to meet you. Well, we're going to move on. We're going to have the rest of the panelists that didn't have a chance to do the intros. We're going to move into the questions of the panel, which is, how are you feeling and how are you leading? And I think that it is very important for us to understand that we've been invisible, as Stephen said. We've been not seen, not heard, not valued. We have no conscious of our own power, so we don't feel necessarily proud to be Latinos because we don't know how incredible our contributions are to the countries. So I want to open up this conversation, this segment of the conversation about how are you feeling and how are you leading. And the leading part is on your families, on your companies, in the current environment, and so on. But I want to frame this under the frame. I just talked about the data, how powerful we are in the data. There's absolutely no way that you can confuse Latinos with migration, but you have to confuse, when you have to associate them with growth. Power, growth, potential. That's it. Now there's a second element, which is the values. The power of Latinos lies so much in their numbers as in their values. We're hardworking, we're aspirational, we're professional, we care about families and friends, and those values are the way we lead. And we need to make sure that companies understand who we are so that they can manage us better, so that they can promote us better. We're never going to come and shout at anyone. We have that in us. You need 3 Latinos in a room, in a corporation, to speak up freely. So those are the kind of conversations we need to have. Someone was asking, what is that 76% that I mentioned about Latinos don't feel comfortable, they don't feel they can be themselves at the workplace? That's a Harvard Business Review data. And that literally is something that we need to address. We launched the Hispanic Promise, a promise to hire, promote, retain, and celebrate Hispanics in the workplace so that we can bring that conversation forward. So I want to ask, I want to start with Fabiola Torres from PepsiCo to talk to us about how do you feel as a Latina in this current environment? Do you want to have more conversations about Latinos at the brand level and at the corporate level? And how are you leading? What's your style as a Latino? And what is the advice that you're giving your corporations, your families and friends about how to understand Latinos better?
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you everyone for having me. It's an interesting conversation today because of the world today, right? It's about inclusivity, it's about diversity, it's about diversity of thought, which is the most important thing. And you mentioned a very interesting stat from Pepsi is this: the majority of the growth is coming from Hispanics for the Pepsi brand and for other brands that we have in our portfolio. And when we're developing a creative brief, a business strategy, it's important to just note all the stats. But most importantly is what you said, is the intrinsic values of what we bring to the table. The family, the camaraderie, the opportunity for us to work together and to include others. I think we're going into a very important era for our new generations, and we have to teach that. I think we have the power and empowerment through brand marketing and to our business to show the new generations about what inclusivity and diversity is. And as Latinos that we've grown, I was born and raised in Mexico, and with all these values, that is important to actually take it into the business. So it is important to show our values every day and to teach others. And we have the luxury to live in this country, which welcomes the majority of them this thinking. So I'm excited to lead that way. I had the opportunity to lead the Hispanic network at Apple and to be one of the women's sponsor leaders as well, and the same as Nike. And when you have the microphone, take it, but take it from who you are and how you express yourself personally and professionally. And on the business side, we need to do that. We need to actually embrace that Latinidad that you ask us for every day, and how we show up as role models, as friends, as Andrea said, but as the business, as how it's actually impacting the business in the marketplace.
Absolutely. So, I absolutely agree with you. We need role models. Latinos are not in tech. First, because they don't have access to technology and education. But the second reason is because no one encouraged them, because they don't have a role model to follow. So let's actually, all of us here in the panel and in the audience, assume that you cannot drink water and you cannot be preaching water and drinking wine. You have to speak up, and you have to become a role model, because our next generations will not be what we are. They will be fully paid, fully respected, and fully valued, because we're going to open the doors for them. So we have to do that. Okay, I'm going to go on to Javier Gutierrez. In intro, how are you leading? How are you feeling? And then I'm going to close this round of intros with the rest with Magda. So Javier Gutierrez, please.
Hi, good morning everyone, or buenos dias, buenas tardes, Javier Gutierrez. First, I really want to thank Brandweek and applaud them for putting just an amazing panel together. I'm beyond inspired by all of these individuals, their accomplishments, and their passion for this community. And so I really want to thank Brandweek and thank all of you. And I know that I am a huge fan and look forward to at some point having a chance to meet in person. I am the president and CEO of the Arizona Coyotes Hockey Club. I was the first Latino president and CEO of an NHL franchise. I'm also honored to work for the first Latino and only Latino owner in the NHL, Alex Morello, Cuban-American. I am Mexicano. I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico. I grew up in San Jose, California. I now reside in Arizona, Phoenix. You are right now in the home of the Coyotes here in our arena. And very, very honored to be in this role, to be the first, and hopefully not to be the last. And that is my focus, is to pave the way. I come actually not from sports. I come from investments, finance, private equity. I was most recently a partner at Clearly Capital Group, which is the largest Latino-owned private equity firm in the country, with almost 25 billion of assets under management. Actually started by my dear friend Jose Feliciano, Puertorriqueño de Bayamón. So very excited. And why did I take this job? People ask me every single day, do Latinos really like hockey? And I say, you know what? When you look in the stands of, I just recently left after living 20 years in LA. If you look at the stands of the Dodgers, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Rams, Latinos are there. And so to me, hockey is that next opportunity. And I'm going to say something from my background in investments. I'm unapologetic about making a statement. The economic success of the United States squarely relies on the economic empowerment of Latinos. And so the faster that brands, whether they are sports teams, whether they're consumer products companies, whether they're tech companies or financial services companies, they either need to understand that, or someone who does will eat their lunch. As I say often, the business plan we have it's not ancillary to our business plan. It is the business plan. You all here, I will ask you all a favor. Please become fans of the Coyotes, because you are my target. I am intentionally going to go after you. I am authentically going to go after you, and I am going to be innovative in my approach. And it's not just going to be one size fits all. It's not going to be just put everything in Spanish. By the way, my first language was Spanish. I was an ESL student, and then eventually was able to get to the Ivy Leagues. Fortunate to live my American dream due to the sweat and tears of my parents. How are we leading? We are putting a business plan together that squarely relies on young people, women, and the multicultural communities, of which the largest cohort is the one that I'm addressing today. So happy to be here and excited to continue the conversation.
Fantastic, fantastic. That's amazing. Magda Izari.
Thank you, Claudia. Good to see you. Thank you, Adweek, and everybody who has already spoken. I am Latina, Boricua, Puerto Rican, first generation New Yorican, which I learned I was a New Yorican when I first went to Puerto Rico for the first time. Here I was growing up on the streets of Brooklyn. Shout out to Ivan. And you're a minority. And I was so excited. My mother could never afford to send us to Puerto Rico. She became a widow in New York at the age of 38 with 3 children. And for college graduation present, I go to Puerto Rico. I'm so excited finally to be a majority, only to be reminded by my cousins that I was not really Puerto Rican, but rather a New Yorican. So this experience happens even inside of our own communities that you were talking about, Claudia. You know, are you Puerto Rican enough? Are you Latina enough? And so these barriers have to come down. And Yvette was talking about, you know, as a Afro-Latina, right? Negrita. And in my family, we have all spectrums of color. I have a Negrita hermana. And she used to say, I was the Blanquita. And so, you know, like, what's up with that? But that is our reality. There's so much intersectionality. There's so much richness and diversity. And Susan, I would love to learn that word that you shared, because that rhythm that's in our soul is so powerful. And when we're leading in a way that I believe is very human. And Claudia, you know, we're all human. I mean, what a powerful name for an organization. And I think in these times of the pandemic and in these times of racial crisis that we're living in, our humanity is what's most important. Those places where we share those common experiences really, really matter. And so at Verizon, we're really trying to just make sure that we amp up the conversations about that reality, about our humanity. And not politicize and not allow things to become politicized that are truly just about human rights and what is just a reflection of justice for all. And so that's how we're leading in this time. I would just say as a family, we're a hub for a very large extended family. And so initially we were so disappointed at not being able to gather. And so I gotta tell you, every Sunday at 4 o'clock, we're on a Zoom call. So I'm seeing my family more often. And so that's a little bit of silver lining. You just have to do a pitch. Stephen was talking about, you know, how many organizations have imprinted themselves in your life. I am a proud aspirante. And I have to tell you that one of the things that we did was we did our first virtual fundraising. How many of you are associated with nonprofits and have material impact that this is happening in organizations and in nonprofits? And so to the brands that are listening, whether it's Aspira or any of the organizations, Stephen, that touched your life, and all of our lives, I can say that when my mom became our single parent at the age of 38, she could not have raised us alone. And she had organizations like Aspira, like the Girl Scouts, like so many organizations that really leaned in and helped her. And we need brands to lean in and make a difference.
On my website, intelligentluxurymagazine.com, there are links to Mr. Michael Jordan's restaurant websites and a link to Marriott, and it's a link to the website for Marriott if you want your hotel managed by Marriott. What I do, right? You can have a Pathfinder.
There's an area that I would like to discuss, and everyone will jump in.
Which is for
and I do want to see
African-American
that
travel.
Latino jumping in and say, like, I am going to go for it. So what can we do to increase the
my my friend's
talking about
family
the
is
advice that you would have
owns that
for
magazine,
brands
Pathfinders.
taking
Great
more role
publication.
in this new activist era that we have for Latinos? What role do Hispanics and Latinos play in that? How do we take opportunities like Hispanic Heritage Month? And what solutions do you see on that? So what advice would you give to brands to
So tonight
help
there's an
Hispanics in their
NAACP
time?
virtual
And
march
I would like to maybe open it up with Fernando Machado. From that moment on, let's be short and sweet so that we can go straight to the heart of it. How can brands help our community now that you have an activist role and that you have an opening?
Yeah, so look, I mean, I don't think there is a silver bullet, to be honest with you, and I'm sure there will be different solutions to tackle that. Like, I tend to believe that before you go outside, you need to look inside. You know, I think it becomes easier for you to engage, for you to do the right thing, for you to not come across tone deaf, for you to not fall the many pitfalls that are out there, not just with Hispanic and Latin Americans, but with African Americans, with religion, with politics. I think that if you want to
This
do
information
it right, you should
is
probably
on my
have
website,
internal representation of the target audience. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's much easier to be empathetic, to understand, to have insights, to know how people will react. If you have a team or agencies or people who not just understand the target or that community, but are part of that community.
Eastway Drive in Charlotte, New
Like,
North Carolina, I believe.
I was afraid of, I always told this to my friends, like every time I was global and I was doing work for Brazil, and the guys would come, guys from outside of Brazil would come with ideas from Brazil. I always used to tell them that they were looking a bit like when Prince Charles goes to Brazil and tries to do something.
And the website,
You know, like, it's absolutely
magazine.com.
and
His website
I think that I'm always afraid of that,
publication
to look like Prince
to read
Charles
before you get
doing
engaged.
samba dance.
So please
You know,
visit
like, so I think you really
themetmuseum.org
need to
for
have
more
that
information about the Met
representation. I think
Museum.
that's probably like
I am Stephanie, and my
step
website
one.
is
I think that the numbers also help. You know, I think that, Claudia, like your
my articles are still on the
with some
website.
of the numbers, I mean, they're all out there. It's not that difficult to find those numbers. But I don't think people really it doesn't register sometimes. You know, like, it may sound even counterintuitive sometimes. And I tell people, like, look, I mean, Burger King and Popeyes over-index Hispanic. So our consumer base over-index versus general population Hispanic. So we should have media buy for Hispanic. We should have assets for Hispanic. We should have representation on the team that's Hispanic. And that's kind of like what we do.
To the 2020 Republican National Convention.
I mean, taking a bit for granted, but I think it's easier because the company over-index Hispanic and we are in Miami, and I think that people have that understanding. But to me, like, step one is like inside. You know what I mean? Like, you actually need to have some representation, and that will increase the chance of you doing the right thing. And then it's like unconscious bias training. Is like trying to have like people who sponsor younger guys, like trying to send Latinos and Hispanic guys to
military's continued support for the civilian
because, like,
traditional
you
government
like to
and
see
finance passport
like that
of
you can make
democracy.
it. Right?
Hopefully, at
If
the
you
Intelligence
just send a bunch
Luxury
of people that are not
Culinary,
Hispanic to
Literary,
recruit
and Sociology trade show will talk
Hispanic
about
population, it's
the
probably not going to
Sudan
work so well.
culture,
So there are
the
like,
Sudan
there are like a long list
cuisine,
of things that you
and
can
the
do
Sudan,
to increase the
Sudan's
representation first,
literature.
and then
So
build a
then,
plan
let's talk about what Mayor de
to
Blasio talked
leverage
about.
this community because it's good for business. You know, that's what people need to understand. You know, that we are not here to like preach that you have to do something because you're poor. No, it's good business. You know what I mean? You're going to make more money for your company if you do it right.
So
Fernando,
today I cooked
we have a business case. The data is there. There's no hiding around it, and there's no.
Shrimp,
So how do we
one
get
tablespoon
more
of
people
butter,
to do it? We need to
and
provide more
also
solutions that are,
whole wheat
like
penny pasta
standard for
with
everyone.
grams of fiber,
Else do we have more? And by no means
Tasty has
people
something with
in and start
McCormick,
talking
a
about
little,
how do you feel, how do you eat, and what are the potential solutions. So Fernando.
A little seasoning pack, and I use that seasoning pack. I didn't use any from the There was a recipe that had kimchi in it. Don't Love Tasty has great, great recipes. Tasty, T-A-S-T-Y. So I think
that
McCormick
will
Tasty
like
for that little
result in a better outcome for the company. You know, like the people need to understand that it's good business. And that's what will move people. It's not like, oh, I think it's the right thing to do, because no, it's good business. You know, you make more money. Equip yourself with the right people. You know, try to understand if you are underrepresented internally, why is that?
So right now,
you know, like I think at minimum you should have 18%, right? That's the general population number, right? So if you don't, why is that?
The Bronx Collaborative
Is it
High
because
School
you're recruiting the wrong places? Is it because people are dropping as they grow? Is it because you don't have senior leaders that
have been fully
represent
inspected,
that segment?
and I
like,
believe
what is the
that
reason? You know, like I will do a bit of soul searching, understand that, and then from there build like a plan. But the company needs to believe. Many times the data is there,
and she's the
but if people don't
president.
believe,
Pardon
it's
me if
just
I'm
like
incorrect.
it's
The
data
president
that
of the
lives on a
School
PowerPoint
of
chart somewhere.
Construction
You don't know what is the
Authority.
action to
So
make
that's
it happen.
good. And then George
Can
Rossi,
I just jump in? Because I think Fernando,
he
you have
talked
such an
about
important point.
inspecting the schools as well.
Amigo mío, like you are a unicorn. You are beloved by our Latino community. So every
And
time
then
that you get another
Linda Shen,
Grand Prix, Cam
working
Ryan,
around the clock
cheering
with
you
the labor
on.
department.
But I feel like we need to have real talk.
We
This is
thank
all
all of
bullshit.
them for speaking
Like, power
today
is
during
not
the press
given,
conference
power
with
is taken.
Mayor Basio.
And I
Hopefully
personally,
next
I am
month I'll be
tired
able
of
to
incrementalism.
get down there to
When
the
I
city
started
hall with my mask
in
on.
Wall Street, you know,
My
in
mask on.
1994, as a summer intern,
And,
thanks to SEO, which Javier knows about, and some of the
definitely.
other people, it was the largest source of diversity on Wall Street.
It's
We were
so funny.
having
I
this
had a ticket for
conversation
the
in
train,
1994
and like
about
part of
getting
it
more
has
Latinos
worn
onto Wall
away.
Street. And fast
But
forward
it's
25
it's a
plus
ticket from New York
years,
City
we
that I
are still
didn't use.
nowhere.
So I wondered if
me
I could use
personally,
it the
I
reverse
am
way.
over
And I was like, I
incrementalism.
might as well just
We
get the
need
one
to
going
have
there,
control
right?
of our own
So hopefully
stories,
sometime
our
next
own
month I can do
companies,
that.
our own leadership.
Or next
We
month,
are in
after
baseball, and
school
this is a
opens.
crisis. And, you know, if you really look at the
So I
black
thank them
community,
for
I
writing
just
all these
admire
events,
them
and
so much.
prayerfully
You know, I
now
believe that
I'll be
ally
able
is
to
a
go
verb,
to
and
some
so
of
this
these
is a moment where
events.
Black Lives Matter, and we are here to
So,
support our brothers and sisters that are going through this
this is an
moment.
important
Where you see an
seminar.
unarmed black man get shot in the back 7 times. But when people are caging Latino kids on the border, for whatever reason, no one seems to get up in arms about that. You had someone drive 9 hours and shoot Latinos in a Walmart last August. And, you know, for whatever reason, people are okay with that. So
Let's
I feel
talk
like
about
this
New
is a
York
moment for
City
real talk. And
syndication.
maybe the problem with
Thank
Latinos
you
is that we are
to
too
the
nice.
Department of Tourism
That
for New
we are
York City
too, you
for
know,
giving me all this great
ay, me da
information,
pena, you know, I don't want
especially
to rock
about
the
the
boat.
Bronx,
But
Arthur
we
Avenue.
are not going to have
So my
any
friend
meaningful
Danielle,
change because we
she
are not in
usually
C-suite.
hosts
We are not on
tours in the
boards.
Bronx. So
We
personally,
are not
I can
represented,
go to one
and
of
we are
those
invisible.
one day
I mean,
with
I
my
don't care
mask
about
on,
any political,
but
you know, kind of
with
party, whether it's
in
the
my
DNC or
gloves,
the
my
RNC.
mask and my gloves.
Latinos are still
I probably
invisible.
won't be able to
So
go
this
next
is an
month.
epidemic across every
But
industry.
personally, I will.
And absolutely, brands
Then,
need to step up, and we need to ask for them to pay
then
their
you
fair
know that's
share
the Bronx,
because
and
they
also
love our
Avenue has a
dollars,
lot of
but
different
for
types
whatever
of
reason, we
restaurants.
need them to
And
show up.
NYC,
They do not.
they're called
And I
NYC
talk about this from
Staycations.
experience. I ran
You
Walmart
can
media
go on
business
vacation
for 4
right there
years,
in New
$1
York
billion
City if
in
you are
media
New York,
spend. I
live in
ran
New York
the
City.
multicultural media business
Take a
for
trip to the
Central
park
Media as
along
the
the
largest
Bronx
buyer
River
of
Greenway.
multicultural media for
So you
Black,
have the
Hispanic,
Bronx
and
River
Asian
Greenway.
consumers. And that was across the board for
So
Procter,
you can find about
Coca-Cola,
those tours.
Heineken,
You have to
Honda,
pay.
Microsoft. And you can show the data all you want. Unless there's someone in a position of power and influence that is
So
not
I'm running out of
denied,
battery
that is
space,
going
and
to
I'm gonna
say,
end this show
we're going to put
quickly,
dollars
quickly,
behind this.
quickly.
It does not
Learn
change.
from the best.
We need more
Dwayne Wade,
Javier's
Jordan
that
Brown,
can actually
Walmart,
be the
Target, Grand
CEO and run
Brandweek,
something.
Masters
We need more
Live, September
Andreas that's
14th
actually
through
going
the
to be
16th,
leading the change at
2020.
Nike.
Remember the
We need more Ivans
NAACP,
like they can
our
actually
national
make an
convention
impact
is next
for our
month.
community.
So go
And so
online,
I
try
would
to
love us
register
to
online
really
for
kind
that.
of figure
Preferably
out
to be in
how are we going to
person.
solve this,
Maybe
you
it'll
know,
be in
together
DC.
as
The
Latinos
president
and
could
leaders,
attend.
because
That would be
we are not going to make any
interesting.
progress.
Temple
And that was really
University's
the impetus
website is
behind me starting my own
temple.edu.
company in
Apply to
Campos,
attend graduate
where
school
we
or
are
attend
actually
continuing
creating
education
entertainment-driven
classes.
edtech
Remember
brands,
about
because
Staycation
no one
in
is taking care of our
NYC?
communities other than us.
There's the South Beach of Staten Island, popular summer destination.
You know
A
that we're like we're
2.5
kindred
mile
spirits in
boardwalk
many
backing
ways,
up at
including
Sandy
on this one.
Shoreline. And the
it's
Ocean Breeze Fishing
the
Pier.
yang is the external and what
That's
brands
in
can do
Staten
for us.
Island.
What really excites me here
And
is
you
not
have the San Diego Historical Society Museum, which preserves the legacy of the oldest continuously inhabited free black settlement in the United States. If you think your company will qualify to win an award in any number of our categories in those verticals, from the hottest magazine of the year to the hottest feud in TV, please consider dropping us a line.
We have within each other, and we forget how so different. Hey, Javier and I come from the same city
You
and
can
have
read
had
all the rules
entirely
about the
different paths.
nominations on
And to be here, we can
adweek.com.
show that as Latinos,
They
we have
especially
more
have
in
visuals
common
and
than we
numbers
have
to
in
illustrate
difference.
your
I
goals,
care less
like
about someone
traffic and
calling
revenue
Latinx,
figures. And if you
Hispanic,
have this
Latino,
week,
Latin
you can
American than about
send
us
to send
standing as one.
them your
That is the
materials. The
number one thing I
deadline to get
think that we
everything in
have
September
to
4th.
do as leaders. The second one
The
is
Society
educate,
of
of course. Yeah, we gotta show
Architectural,
people that things
I
are
believe that's
complex and as
Adweek,
brands as complexity and
not
nuances, but
Brandweek.
also
I
simplify
believe that's Adweek.
and focus on the
So the
things that bring us
Society of
together as
Architectural
consumers. To
Historians
use our
is
power
accepting
as
proposals
leaders to
for
invest in
virtual
the Latino
programs such as
community and to
roundtable
also
meetings,
remind people of the
informational
consumer
programs,
power and
debates,
the
and book
beauty of
discussions
Latino
to be
culture and
presented
how that
virtually
contributes
after
to the
the
cultural richness of America.
SAH
And
74th
lastly, and
Annual
more personal
International
for me, is that we
Conference
have to
in
support.
Montreal on
Support with the
dates
choices
between
we
May
make.
3rd to the
Support
28th
those
of
we mentor and try
2021.
not to
That
mentor
would be
just
great to
Latinos,
know
but
about
as
the
leaders. Mentor
architectural
people of every color so that we
history
continue to be
of
seen as Latino
buildings in
leaders and
Montreal.
as
That would
leaders
be
overall.
great. I'm
And
sure they're
lastly,
going to write about
support
that, as well
the
as in
other
Toronto
people
in
of color.
Canada.
Right now, I'm doubling down on
Native
supporting the Black
Canadian
community. They've been
architectural
leaders in
would be a
civil
good
rights
idea,
before. We've
as
gotten a
well
lot of
as
change. We're
African
going through a
American
lot of pain, and
architectural
as Latino community,
is a subject
I
that
do
has
believe that all
not
boats rise
been
and
covered.
that doubling
African
down on the
architecture
injustices that we
is
see in
always
the Black
covered.
community
Maybe
will
African
help
American
them
architecture.
gather more and more energy
African
to
American
address
men
the
who were
injustices
architects
that we see as a Latino community.
who built buildings, residential or
Would love to
commercial
add a
in
couple of
the
thoughts
United
here. We
States
have talked
or
about
abroad, but
business and as
African
leaders
American
what we
descent.
need to do to bring
So
people
those
and have
submissions
them
that address the
succeed.
current
I
conditions
think
of
that is
research,
really one of
teaching,
the
and
key steps
scholarship
that
are
we need to
encouraged.
take.
How
But
to
also
manage
talking
a
about
nonprofit
externally as a
while
community, what we can
publishing
do.
books
But
for
I
a
would love to add
nonprofit.
some thoughts
That
as
studies
individuals and as
publishing
Latin
architectural
talent.
books
What can we do
is
to
a
have
great
a
idea
seat on
for
the table
local
as
architects
well? And I believe
who
there are three areas that I would
are,
like to highlight. One is self-awareness.
help the historical
And what is
society
our personal
with
branding?
tours and things
Recognize
like
that
that.
we do
How to
have
work with the architectural
amazing
historians
skills.
as the
We're
historical
hard
society.
workers.
All great
Our experience have made us
topics.
resilient in many of our markets.
So let me
We have
quickly
learned to be resourceful.
before
I
my
think
phone
many of
cuts off.
us
If I
might
cut off, I
have
won't go back on.
stories
But
about
the Federal
how at
Bank
some point
Regulatory
we were
Agencies
the
finalized
marketing,
the
the
3
finance, the
rules yesterday,
logistics, and the
which
salesperson
are
at the same time
identical
for our
or
businesses.
this
And
week
we
it
have
seems, or
developed
substantially
amazing
similar
skills
to
in
the
that
interim
sense. We're
final rules
creative, we can bring
currently in
fun.
effect that were
So
issued
that
earlier this year.
self-awareness to
They
build a
include a
personal
final rule
brand
that
is really
temporarily
important.
modifies the
And
community
then
bank leverage
networking.
ratio as
Networking is
required by the
fundamental. I
CARES Act.
didn't know how to
Start your own
network when I
bank if
first
you majored in
came
finance.
to the US 4
It's
years
so
ago.
important to have
Of
more
course, I knew
African
how to
American banks. I
network in
remember
that
reading about
area.
these
It's very
African
social,
American owned banks
it's
and
a
Black
lot about
enterprise, and
relationships
definitely
and
need more.
connections. But here,
And
I didn't
you
even
may be
know
able
how
to
to
start your own
start.
bank within a
I
bank.
didn't even
Ask
know
the
what
boss if you work
questions
for a
to
bank.
ask.
If
And
you can
I'm being
start your
humble
own
about
bank,
this. But this
to
is
be
the
a
reality
bank
that I was
that's African
facing after
American
20
owned.
years
It's
of
important. A
career.
final rule that makes more broad, and it's
And
important
I
to be a
remember that I
community bank
asked
here.
one of my
Automatic
mentors, a
restrictions on
CMO in
distributions
a
of
great
the bank
company,
to
and I said, how do I network?
organizations, capital,
How do I do this? And of course I learned, and I
and a
met
final rule
amazing
that
people.
allows
I met
institutions that adopt the
Nadine
current
did, and now I'm sitting
expected
here.
credit
So
losses or
these
CECL
opportunity
accounting standards in 2020
opportunities can
to
come really
mitigate
through
the
our
estimated effects of
networking
CECL
and
on
the efforts that
regulatory
we do
capital
to
for 3
establish
years.
those connections here.
I don't
And
know the
last but not
definition of
least, I want to
CECL.
mention the role of the mentors.
Current
I have
expected
many
credit
mentors.
losses.
I have mentors with different
Remember, go see your banker if
superpowers,
you're having
and
trouble paying your mortgage.
I really
It
love
may
to
know about
tap into
resources
their
to help you
expertise and have them
sell your
listening
home or
and have
pay
them
off
sharing
your
their
pay off your
advice and
mortgage with
them
your
giving me
savings and your
a hand
investments to
to
pay your
navigate
taxes.
some of the
It's
cultural
always great
dynamics,
to go
business
see your
dynamics,
banker.
professional
Talk about right
dynamics. They
now.
are like my
People
personal
you can
board
still probably
of directors. So
fill out
yes, at the
information about
companies,
your
and
student
especially
loans.
I can speak about the Estée Lauder
And
companies,
to
we have
get
amazing amazing tools, we have amazing platforms for the self-awareness, for the networking, for the mentorship, private reverse mentorship. And really leveraging all of that is very important. And I think closing with the thought on who we are as leaders in Hispanic, how can we share more of our stories? As I read the Q&A, it is interesting to see that there are many comments about, oh my God, I didn't know that there were so many leaders in this type of positions in so many companies. So here we are, we can do more. For me, like I'm shy sometimes and it's difficult, but I am committed now to expose myself even more, to share my story, and to help with the networking, help with the self-awareness, be a mentor. I'm already a mentor in some of the Brandweek programs and internally in the company, but what else I can do as a leader and take action there. So thank you for the time.
lower moderate income communities.
This is Magdiri Sari. I don't think
Visit
I introduced
Oregon,
myself
Microsoft
as
Box X,
Verizon's Chief
Gamecast
Diversity
Ultimate,
Officer
Microsoft Suite
earlier,
First Computers,
another part of
Adobe
my identity.
Creative Cloud,
And so
Apple
I wanted
Computers,
to just
Back to Graduate
comment
School,
about
Apple
kind
Computers.
of
These are
how
favorite.
this requires a
These are
company
my favorite book
to
publishers.
work across functions. I happen to be very fortunate to work alongside Diego Scotti, who is our CMO. And you know, he's very clear, we're all very clear that this is across all of the points of contact to really recognize the full potential of the Latino marketplace. And so there's actually a Hispanic council in the organization, and I will tell you, there are like hundreds and hundreds of people who are in sales, who are in customer care, who are technicians and people who are touching our customers every part of their journey, really coming in and saying, how do we earn the right to be the provider of choice? You know, how
it's hard to walk through the
we
stores if you're trying to catch the
superior
train
experiences
or the bus.
to the Latino marketplace.
We have Michael Jordan's
And
restaurants, we have Valley Hospital,
and so really just being very consistent and thinking about every interaction that we're having. Is it really going to earn us the right?
I love,
the other
when you're walking back into the train, I love picking different
that you're not in
streets,
it alone.
Going,
right? Marketing's not in it alone. The chief diversity officer's not in it alone.
Like 59, 58, 57, 56, 55, 54.
Earning that right.
So I did that one time.
It's also that Verizon can't
walk down like
do this
one
alone.
street,
So
one
Diego
day.
helped
So it takes like a week
to launch, and I just thank every
all the way
brand
to
that's
34.
involved with the
Sometimes I walk down to 34th on payday
we're
to go to
talking
Herald
about
Square.
building that
One of my favorite
pipeline
stores,
of future
Conway
leaders,
in New York City.
letting there be
Conway is
awareness
similar
that
to
you
Target.
exist,
It has
that you can
it has
mentor,
like
that you can
discount
open
clothes,
the
but
doors
really
at your
stylish
firms
clothes.
to
So
Latinos
really
that
nice
are coming
clothes for
up, that are
work, for
graduating
trade
from
shows,
college,
for
and
the
they have
office
earned the right
is available
to
at
have
Conway's.
access.
There's a
And we need to
Conway's
be
in Harlem
more
that I used to go
engaged
to.
as companies
Drive
across
by,
industry.
walk
What's
by the
beautiful
Conway's
is that
on 34th Street
ad
and take the
agencies
train
are
on New
involved so
Jersey
that students can
Transit.
get the agency
You can take the bus
experience.
to New
We've
Jersey
got
on the suburbs
corporations
to
involved so they could get the client side
to
of the
New Jersey.
experience. We all
The
know
Port
what
Authority
it
has
takes.
is right across the street
What
from
are
the New
those
York
sets of
Times.
experiences that are going to create the next Diego Scotti, the next
strawberry
Fernando
store in there.
Fabiola?
So
What
we
are
love
those
that store.
experiences and how to create
starts with the B.
those
Boltons.
experiences? I
Great
think
stores to
AdFellows
shop
is a
at
great
before and
example
after
of how an industry
you work.
can
And then,
come
of course,
together.
the bookstore in the
And
Port
really,
Authority.
it's not about one
There's a
company
Hudson News
or
bookstore
one
upstairs
department.
near the
It's
bowling
really
alley.
going to have to
I don't know if it's
take
on the
that
same
we
floor
in
as
our
the bowling alley,
companies
but it's
engage
upstairs.
everybody, and outside of our
Bloomingdale
companies
sells
as an
Clothing
industry
Fashion Week
engage everybody.
is next month. And Whole Foods Market. Don't we love sushi from Whole Foods Market? I had great Thai sushi from Whole Foods Market with a little fried
as far as my
onion,
cousins, my
fried
primos in Mexico,
peanuts on the outside. Great
when I
meal.
went over there, I was pocho,
seaweed,
right? The
green
pocho
vegetables,
experience means
cucumber,
you're like, you're not
carrots.
Mexican enough, but then here,
They
you're
mix the
Mexican
brown and white
American,
rice,
you have
which
the
is
nopal on
good
your forehead,
on the roll
proudly,
with a little shrimp
right?
or
So that was the
salmon.
pocho experience,
That's all you need for
or
dinner. It's
what
like one
I
roll
learned
or
in
two
college
rolls.
and became aware of was the
Really good.
Chicano experience,
Reserve a
right?
luxury hotel room
And
today.
that was our term
Embassy Suite Sampler
of
downtown
call to
Convention
action and
Center.
empowerment.
Watch
And I
60
just want to
Minutes.
acknowledge that
Pardon me,
today,
watch
as we
60
sit
Minutes on
here,
CBS.
is the
Play The
50th
Sims by
anniversary
EA
of the Chicano
Sport.
moratorium that happened on August 29, 1970, which was really the birth of Mecha and really the coming together of
So
the
I
Chicano
love Free
movement that
People
ran
Clothes.
parallel to the civil rights
Create
movement,
crafts.
Martin Luther
Please
King,
watch
Cesar Chavez, the
CNBC on
Black Panthers, and the Brown
CNBC.com.
Berets.
And
Right
I'm a
back
White House
then,
correspondent.
they were coming together
Please
to
visit
protest the
freepeople.com.
disproportionate
I
amount of
read the
casualties
New
in
York
Vietnam
Times,
by
read
Latinos
articles
being
on
11% of the population, close to
NewYorkTimes.com
20%
or
of
NewYorkTimes.com.
casualties as we sit
And
here today,
the Wall
right?
Street Journal,
Glad to
read
give an amazing breakdown of how
WallStreetJournal.com,
we're disproportionately affected right now by COVID,
I'm a
right?
lifetime
When
member of
we're, as
NAACP.
far as
Please
population
visit
versus casualties,
NAACP.org. I'm
I
going
gotta
to
say that
discuss
all
REITs.
this coming
Let's
to light
discuss these
because
REITs.
of
Release
just
a
the
retail
social
location
justice
or a restaurant at
uprising
a
that we're
pre
witnessing.
or
It's
Simon
definitely
Property
spilling
Group.
over
Do you
into
like Side
brands,
Health?
right? And
Be
gone
at a
are the
mall,
days when
shopping
brands can
center,
differentiate
medical
between
services.
their political social justice views and their consumer facing
Male
marketing
physicians that give
agendas,
breast
right? We've
exams
seen
are
two
allowed
perfect
to touch your
examples.
breast.
Andrea, what
So there's
Nike
no
has done,
complaint.
I mean, grab the tissue every time
When
one
you
of
have
those
breasts over your lungs,
you know,
right?
really pieces comes out
No one
with
touched the nipple,
statements
right? So
standing by
that's
your
fine.
values, your morals, above your stock price and
Moving
what
on
has
with
happened.
that
You know,
fake
people were burning
lawsuit.
nights, your
Someone
stock
hacked
price
into my
went down.
computer. Can
We
you
saw
believe that? Some people
unfortunate
are Coco for Loco, and Loco for Cocoa Puffs. I shouldn't say that. I like Cocoa Puffs. I like being crazy for Cocoa Puffs, but really mentally ill people should go to wherever mentally ill people should go. I'm going to
it,
discuss
but
lease
the
a retail
solution is the
location or
power
restaurant
we have
at Pre or
with our
some
vote
property
and with
group.
our vote. I'm part of the
Think
Impact
about
Council
who's,
for Voto Latino, a nonprofit started by Rosa Dawson and Maria Teresa
people
Kumar,
active.
right? We engage political youth, right? It's a nonpartisan organization, but
So
now
Ryan
more
was
than ever,
founded in
what is the solution?
2017 by
Participate
Dina
with your
D.
wallets and who you
Senso
support,
and
right? We
Joshua
all get to
Catcher.
become
Located
Coyote
in
fans,
Brooklyn,
right?
New York, Ryan is
I
transforming
Coachella
the
Valley,
cheese
the desert,
market
but blessed for
by
me,
combining
I'm
vegan
familiar
innovation
with
with cheese making
events for you,
traditions.
right? So
Thank you, Ryan, for sending me that information. So you can go to ryan.nyc, and then so I don't know really, I don't know the owners of the company who endorses it, but they sent me an email. So thank you. Always have to try to give someone a chance, even though they probably have a little bit more publicity than I. So let's talk about the National Park Service's birthday this week and historic day. You can Google that. When President Woodrow Wilson in 1916 signed the act that created the National Park Service. So we celebrate the 104th birthday of our nation's park this week, and we recognize the significant role of the National Park Service. Very significant. What we do for our parks. Go to your parks every day. You need the sun, you need the exercise you can do, a little yoga in the park, maybe. So from offering places of tranquility, educational opportunities for children, and breathtaking view of our National Parks Art program, national parks continue to be an important aspect of American life. The people experience mental health effects caused by any type of pandemic, said Second Lady Karen Pence. And she traveled to the nation's great national parks to highlight the many mental health benefits of the outdoor office. I know I always feel good when I go to the park along the Hudson River in New York City, or even looking at the park. When you're on the Parkway, when you're in Henry Hudson Parkway, on the park, just sitting in traffic, looking at New Jersey, looking at the water, looking at the ducks, the boaters, the cars across the it's just people riding and bicycling. It's a beautiful view to see the sun set over the West Side Highway Park, which goes from about Harlem to the South Street Seaport, and then they have that other park on FDR Drive, where I also used to play baseball on the Lower East Side, LES.
And my role at Google is to lead branch
We played in LAS,
programs,
Lower East Side, we played on Roosevelt Island, and we played on
and at Google, we know that we need to do better
above the West Side Highway Park, where they have the sanitation.
And so I'll just share an experience that we've been doing as practice that we
the
talk
garbage
about
disposal where
publicly.
they burn whatever they're burning over
3
there.
years ago, we started looking at our own
And then the executive order on targeting opportunity zones and other distressed communities.
Every year we do a vast
site location on August 24th. That was signed. It was an amendment to read as follows. This order reaffirms the commitment set forth in Executive Order number 12072 as amended to strengthen our nation's distressed communities by encouraging the location of federal facilities in qualified opportunity zones. And I should do more research about opportunity zones. I would love to start a business opportunity zone.
But in 2019, the last audit that we talked about, we also learned that
just
only
a pop-up
6%
shop
of our
or a
ads
permanent shop
portrayed Latinx
in
people.
an opportunity zone.
That is not up to
That's one of my goals.
representation of our community and the population.
Goals.
We know we need to do
talk
more
about
to
different opportunity
represent
zones like I
Latinx
did
in
in
our
the
work.
past.
And it goes beyond
In
representation.
certain areas, especially
We
in New
also
York.
know
Sorry I missed that
this
New York
audit how
conference
we're
earlier
portraying
today.
people. Right? We need to
popped up,
positively portray people and
You can
actively
always
fight
have to go back and see what Suffolk County,
stereotypes
what
as
they're
well.
talking about.
Because
Sometimes
you
they
can't
tell you
have
about great
men portrayed in
opportunity
the
zones.
workplace and women portrayed in the
It'd
kitchen.
be great if Mayor de
You know, you
Blasio
can
could
get up
talk
to
about opportunity
representation,
zones.
but
He talks about a lot of important
matters
stuff.
just
I'm
as
not a
much,
parent,
if not
so
more.
the school stuff
So if
is
there's anything
good.
that I can suggest as a best practice for all the
Not to
marketers
keep busy.
out
My
there
business
is look
my
inside, look at
my
your
project
own
here.
work.
The
Take a
2020
cross-section,
BMW Championship officially got underway today at Olympia Fields Country Club in Olympia Fields, Illinois, as the club hosts the event for the first time since 1971 and the sixth time in its history. Defending the BMW Championship winner Justin Thomas will look to become the first repeat champion since BMW became the title sponsor in 2007. So yay, that's good.
There's a lot of learning that we still have to do internally and with our own partners from an agency, leaders,
so remember
as well.
The U.S. Department of Commerce has the census. The U.S. Census, great way to learn about the current statistics. I'm still working and updating. Someone actually went and deleted it, and I was happy. I had several copies, and they deleted all the copies. I always make extra copies of files so that I don't accidentally delete.
And you know, sometimes they take it, or we take it as creators and creatives. We take it for granted that we represent somehow some voice, and then when it comes to the work, it is very stereotyped, and that's what is happening in a lot of work that we have developed through the years. And you know, whether it's Nike in the US or Apple or Pepsi, we continue to grow, and they're brands that are extremely inclusive and they want to do better. And there are a lot of things that their willingness to do and value to that. But sometimes the know-how is non-existent in the company. As Fernando said, is about really bringing more people in, like really take a look at who are you hiring, why are you hiring that person, what is their background, and really be thoughtful about how you do it to develop that work, because it doesn't happen by accident. And sometimes we hire in agencies that they tend to say that they're experts on Hispanics or Latinos, and it's not true. Because they tend to do the career like 25, 30 years ago. You know, I'm raising kids in the US and born and raised here as a Mexican family, and you know their thinking is different, and their music and culture and gaming and everything that is happening in this world is different the way that they absorb versus what I absorbed when I was a kid growing up in Mexico. So we have to be completely educating ourselves and learn and relearn every day. And I will invite to just hire interns and invite people to consult to our companies outside of our own comfort zone, to create a point of view, to challenge ourselves, because sometimes it's just we stay in our own bubble as well. So I would just say for the panelists, but for our attendees and people that are in this forum today, join us, join us and have a point of view, and really help us to grow the telescope, to show the new faces and the new generations of who we are in this country, and to educate the world, because right now our platforms are global, and making sure that global culture that is expanded through music first is actually helping us to show another face for us now and for the future.
And what are we going to do about it? So we're going to have a round of, I know that we have a couple of panelists that are going to come with solutions and concrete actions. So pay attention, audience, because this is the time in which you understood the situation, you understood where we're starting from, our place. So how are we
speaking of nice people, so many people laugh and get confused. I send out long emails because I have so many jobs. Usually I have 3 jobs. I work full-time at a magazine, part-time as a fill-in radio board operator at CBS Radio, and I work part-time at a library. At the library, I held book fairs, so as I was meeting celebrities on the red carpet covering, I was also, if they had a book, inviting them through their publicists to attend the book fair. So I would like to thank everyone that helped out with that type of things, like Christopher, all of the people that attended. A special, I would like to also thank, so I was doing all these things, meeting people at the radio station who didn't write books yet, waiting for those people to write books, like Causey, Paco, Miss Carol, I call her Mr. Paco. I say Mr. in first name, so let's get through. Mr. Michael Mahale, National Association of Police Organizations. A little bias covering him today because I have an uncle who's in law enforcement. He endorses Trump, recognizes his strong support for men and women on these front lines. So, I'm a Democrat, but I believe in learning about the other side. You have to learn about the other side in order to debate the other side. So all of you that want to go to college, Get on those mock trial teams. Get on those debate teams. It really helps you. It really helps you get into school, but it also helps you talk about the issues and be prepared to debate the issues. If you get into politics, if you are a journalist, or if you're writing a report to promote a certain policy as a social worker, as a sociologist, as a criminal justice major, as a person, as a youth that starts a nonprofit to help people like yourself. Think about that. Remember to give yourself a salary if you start your nonprofit. I have a book on how to start a nonprofit. It tells you all these great things. They were at Fort McHenry in Baltimore, Maryland. It's a great place to go.
If people don't know how to pronounce Jorge,
and
you have to change your name to George, hey, get it. They will learn because we will be 25% of the population.
Laura Trump, wife of Eric Trump's
proud and loud of it. Fernando Machado, what do you have to say
Mr.
about
Vigil, the wife was killed by gun violence. An African American Republican. It was not I. Mr. Clarence Henderson, civil rights leader. 60 years ago, segregation was legal. Over 60, just 60 years. By sitting down to order a cup of coffee, we challenged injustice, he said we cursed at it, I'm summarizing, and called it all kinds of names. They cursed at him and called him all kinds of names. They threatened to kill us, so that's what he said. Richard Glenio, a former acting director of the National Intelligence, great speech. Everyone had a really good speech. Mr. Pence, he talked about a lot of things. So as I was transcribing the interview, President Trump, he said, I know, summarizing, that the men and women who put on the uniform of law enforcement, they are best. We are not going to defund the police, not now, not ever. I can't imagine not having the police there to protect you from people that you can't protect yourself from in the world. That's why we need good police, the good police. So don't hate all the police. Don't even hate the bad ones. Pray that they stop being bad and that there's policies are put in place to prevent bad policing. But support the good police, like all of us. So you police, remember that there are African Americans, most of us, that support the police. That we remember, we call you on the phone. We call you to pick these people up. We tell you to incarcerate these people who unfortunately might be violent or addicted to narcotics. So thank you, Mr. Pence. I thought that was great. That was a great speech that he delivered last night at the Republican National Convention. And it's really interesting. I was like, wouldn't Congresswoman Stephanie, at least Stephanie, I was like, that's interesting. Like, that's like part of my name, Stephanie. So she grew up in a small business family, and I thought that was great. And then she was the first person in her immediate family to graduate college. So that was pretty interesting. And I wasn't the first person to attend college, but I'm one of the first to graduate from college in my immediate family. So some of that.
Yeah, and we have only upside. So Maria.
Yeah, no. I wanted to jump in because I think you said something that triggered that I've been wanting to